What's up, everybody, and welcome to ITG Daily, the show that brings you the hottest in gaming news. I'm Drew Bosley. You can find me on Twitter at ArtisticGamer28, and that's the one, the only. It is Scott Savage. You can find him on Twitter at Savage. Scott, what's going on, buddy?
Oh man, I was up late last night, as always, but crushing through. You know those roguelite experiences? Sometimes you can't put them down.
Yeah, I was back on that one this morning, actually, and I had to go. So I was like, I'm not done, man. I'm not done. It's yeah, looking forward to talking about that.
That's the problem. A lot of the time, you're never done.
Yeah, it's never finished. No, you know why I'm never done is because I die so many times. I start over, Scott. But that's a whole other different show. We can talk about that one later. But what we're doing today is where people can join us live every day, Monday to Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern, over on twitch.tv/the official ITG, as well as YouTube at ITG. But if you can't join us live, hit us up later inside the game.ca, podcast services and TV streaming networks around the globe. Scott, today's show, it's a loaded one. Let me scroll back up to the top and find out where I'm at here. Here we go. We get an inside look at the games industry agreement with Whitethorn Games. But best of all, Scott, we finally get some details of STARFIELD. Woohoo. Dude, no time.
Yeah, any bit of information I can get about STARFIELD, that's the big one on the horizon now,
right?
For me.
Absolutely. At this point, it's like, man, the game is out. We know it's coming next year, but it's like we still know very little about the game. So I'm looking forward to finding out more about that. We have some disappointing news too. Final Fantasy Battle Royale game is shutting down, and well, Activision Blizzard once again faces a sexual harassment lawsuit.
Oh man, the hits don't stop coming from that.
No, they just keep coming, Scott. Let's get into today's topic, as it's a big one, because it's STARFIELD, and I want to talk about it. STARFIELD dialogue trees reveal a new video towards Todd Howard says the game just passes over 250,000 lines of dialogue. Dude, that's a big one. That
seems like a lot of dialogue now. Yeah,
sure does. This seems like a ton of dialogue, and that's a big that makes it a big game.
I'm wondering if it's going to be the same as other Bethesda open RPGs, where you get a lot of the same voice actors talking to themselves, because there's a very few variety of voice actors. It led to a huge amount of funny scenes that play out. You'll see YouTube videos of Oblivion back in the day, or Morrowind.
That's just this comes from Logan Plant over at IGN. So why don't we get into his article here? Dialogue choices are a huge part of any great Bethesda RPG, so fans have been wondering what kind of system the developer would implement in STARFIELD. Now, thanks to a new video from Bethesda, which I wasn't able to quite find, Scott. I'll have to get that one next time. The director Todd Howard has shared some details of what to expect in your conversations in STARFIELD's STAR system. Quote, "We've gone back to kind of a classic Bethesda-style dialogue system," Howard said. "You're looking at the character and how they emote. You have a series of choices there." End quote. Howard also talked about the persuasion system, saying players will spend points to persuade characters to get what they want. Ooh, dude, I like that. The example shown had 4 different dialogue options on screen, with each one costing a different amount of points. The +1 option was passive, the +5 option being very aggressive. These lines This lines up with what we previously heard from Bethesda, said Oblivion's dialogue mini game was inspiration in Starfield.
That's exactly where I was thinking. I've seen that happen before, but in the case of Oblivion, it was really hard to read what the emotes were.
Right.
There was a lot to be desired, but that was a game that's 20 years old at this point.
Right. Well, yeah. At this point now, like, man, we'll be able to see every little detail from an eye blink to like an eyebrow raise kind of thing, right? So yeah, there's times have changed, Scott. We'll be in for a whole different game when it comes to Starfield releasing sometime next year. Brad joins us over at on Twitch and says, "I'm pumped for Starfield, but I'm also worried about the overhypeness, similar to what we saw with Cyberpunk." That's a fantastic point, right? But it is Bethesda.
If I were to counter that point,
sure.
I had the same worries about Elden Ring, but that turned out to be absolutely good. Sometimes they do hit the target.
No, that's agreeable, right? Sometimes the hype is real and it's there and it works. Other times the hype is there, but then it falls flat on its face, which is unfortunate, right? Because there's a lot going on when they're into building these worlds, building and designing the game, and then all these dialogue options in the game. The scope of the game sounds big. So let's get in there. Back to the article here, Scott. Starfield will have more branching dialogue paths than any previous Bethesda game. Whew. Howard also spoke about the volume of content, saying that team worked to make sure depth was still present in conversation, even though there are so many of them. Quote, "The scope of the game, the amount of content we're making is a bit more than we've done in terms of quests and things like that," he said. "But the depth in some of this stuff with the dialogue, we just passed 250,000 lines." Oh man. And so that's a lot of dialogue. Absolutely. "But we've gone through it and the impact is really there," end quote. For comparison, Bethesda said Skyrim had almost 60,000 lines of dialogue and Fallout 4 had 111,000. So Starfield currently holds the amount of dialogue is over quadruple that of Skyrim's. Dude,
Skyrim, see again, 60,000 lines of dialogue sounds like a huge amount, but Skyrim is always kind of laughed about for its repeated lines. The, arrow to the knee is the most known of that.
Which is something, you and I were talking about this last night. I saw this article. I'm like, yo, we got to talk about this. And I never played Skyrim. Dude, it's one of those things that it's like on my game of shame, right? It's one of those games of shame.
It's a big open hole in there.
It's I saw Joel not too long ago. He went back into it. Nate's brother went back in and played through it again. And man, like it's one of those games that so many people go back to play over and over
and over. I've played it a dozen times now.
Right? They just relive that world. So that's just such a hole in my gaming ecosphere that is just, I don't know. I have a hard time getting into that genre for some reason a little bit. And maybe it's, there's certain games I connect with from Bethesda and there's certain games I don't connect with. And I think it's just a game by game basis from Bethesda for myself. Dude, Dishonored always comes to mind, right? Like that's an arcane game, but it's still one of those things. Are you interested in Starfield, or is the hype true there for you, or is this something you just kind of, I'll wait and see how this goes?
Hey, it's one that I've kind of waned in and out of. I'm very excited for it currently, but I try not to learn every single detail, every little screenshot, and obsess over it to that degree. Yeah. Because I'm worried that I'll just hype myself up for something that won't match my expectations. But I think in this case, it's probably a pretty safe bet to be excited about this one. I feel like many people have said that, though, in the past about certain projects, Cyberpunk being the biggest one.
No, for sure, right? I remember getting asked, "Do you think Cyberpunk will fail at all?" I'm like, not a chance. Like, why would you think that? We're talking about the team that made it.
There's no way.
Yeah, and now, look at it, right? Look at the launch. But look, now they've been able to turn it around. I just don't want that turnaround cycle, dude. Just give us the full game, right? Give us what we're supposed to experience. And I think Bethesda being backed now by Microsoft as well makes that a little bit different. And the attention to detail, dude, like. This one has me really intrigued. Like, I often go to Mass Effect, again, another hole in my ecosphere. Dude, the first game just ruined it for me and I couldn't get back into it. I know 2 is completely different. I actually started 2 and was really enjoying it, but I couldn't seem to, I didn't stick around. I had other things I had to do. And it's one of those, dude, when you when you review games, we're always kind of constantly working on the game we're reviewing at the time, so it's hard to branch off to get other side things done, but sometimes it happens. Sometimes you're available to do that, but man, oh man, I got holes I gotta fill. Scott, I got holes I gotta fill.
I have the same problem. It's a whole PlayStation ecosystem. We're
Dude.
slowly filling it in as it comes to PC. Yeah, I'm not upset about that.
Yeah, you got a bigger hole to fill than I do, I'll tell you that. I've been on PlayStation for a very long time, but Scott, let's get into something a little bit interesting here, as Whitethorn Games shared updated publishing agreement and transparency breakdown. Let's go from Daniela Pardis over at gamesindustry.biz. The U.S. publisher Whitethorn Games has shared its publishing agreement online, alongside a transparency report that gives insight into how much its staff are paid, the amount of funding it gets per game, and how much the firm recoups in return. Dude, this is pretty well unheard of in our industry.
Yeah,
right?
Just opening up their financials like that. It's not something you see every day.
No, this I think their most recent game was Lake. Whitethorn Games is a very relaxed developer with their games and their titles that come out, so a little bit of a different genre, smaller studio, but we'll get into that in a second. According to the report, Whitethorn takes an average of 28% of the title's net revenue, with the lowest and highest percent ever requested being 8% and 35% respectively. It also states that the average amount of funding a title receives stands at $232,000, while the highest figure on one game alone hitting $340,000. The average marketing spend per title falls approximately around $56,000. Quote, in this industry full of NDAs, it can often be hard to feel well informed, especially for new developers navigating this space for the first time. Whitethorn said in a tweet accompanying the post, "We'd like to share as much information as we can in hopes that it can affect real change in the way these deals are made," end quote. The company also shared its staff headcount, which stands at 35 people, and the average salary per employee, which falls around $51,000 per year. An average executive/board member takes around $73,000, and the CEO yearly pay falls around $75,000. Whitethorn originally shared its post agreement back in December 2020, shortly after Raw Fury made its own agreement public with the aims to level the playing field. Scott, 35 people at Whitethorn, approximately per year. Dude, they're somewhere in around about $2 million to function that studio.
Oh yeah, it's not cheap keeping the lights on, that's for sure.
Right?
It's interesting that they're just opening up to outside observers completely. Yeah, it almost seems like an act of solidarity with other studios that maybe are having issues arguing about certain numbers, finances. Maybe there's an opinion that they're trying to counter, where people are thinking, these developers are far too greedy. They want a big portion of the sales. Yeah, and that's just not the case.
No, it's not, right? At the end of the day, they just want to make a good game and be able to do this for a living, and it's not easy. But when you think about it, man, like a team like Cyberpunk, how big they are, CD Projekt Red, how big they are, or a team the size of Ubisoft.
I was thinking Ubisoft. How big do you think their financial book is?
It's got to be huge, right? Because if you figure 35 people, you're somewhere around $2 million. Man, 35 people.
They probably employ several thousand people.
Absolutely, they do, right? So does Activision Blizzard and PlayStation and Xbox, and so keep in the back of your mind how expensive these games really are. And we complain about how $80 is an expensive price. I get it, right? But at the same time, they got to be able to recoup their price, their expenses to get back into the game, so they can keep making the next game. So it's kind of one of those balancing acts, right? How well did Lake do? It came through ID at Xbox, I believe. I don't think it came as Game Pass. Did it go on Game Pass at all?
I think it is on Game Pass, yeah.
Is it? Okay.
I'm certain I've downloaded it at one point, but I did not have a chance to get into that.
Yeah.
That is what's playing now, isn't it? That looks
absolutely.
great.
It does. Yeah, it's like a walking sim, right? So they played a few games that are really, really chill, right? Or made a few games that's chill. And you can just relax and not have to worry about the stresses. That's kind of what their company motto is that you don't get all worked up and build an anxiety around the games that they make. They just allow you to go out and experience a good time, relax, just kind of have that beer after work and unwind maybe, or something like that. Which is something I like to do. So it's, but sometimes you need that intensity too, Scott. That just changes things. What's not going to be intense for too much longer, though, however, is Final Fantasy 14, The First Soldier. It's free to play battle royale multiplayer game for mobile, was released on November 17th. But, however, Square Enix is shutting it down, Scott. There comes the post from Final Fantasy 14. The First Soldier. Final
Fantasy 7 First Soldier.
Oh, sorry, my bad. Yeah. Here's what they had to say. It is with a heavy heart that we are announcing the end of the service for Final Fantasy VII, The First Soldier. We will be ending the service on January 11th, 2023. Despite all of our efforts to bring you regular updates with fresh and exciting content, we haven't been able to deliver the experience that we were hoping to. And that you all deserve. So we have made the extremely tough decision to end the service for The First Soldier. Dude, this is pretty disappointing already. Like, it hasn't even been out a year and they've already decided to cancel it. We would like to thank all of you for supporting us over the past year. Although there is only a little less than 3 months until service ends. Man, weird. We will continue to make updates during this time. We hope you will continue to enjoy The First Soldier until the very end. Man, Final Fantasy VII Battle Royale. Kind of thought it would be a kind of a shoe-in, Scott. I know it's obviously a different turnaround for what it means for Final Fantasy, but at the same time, I thought they're entering, which is essentially a big genre right now at this point. It's a hot one.
Oh yeah, it was a giant fandom to kind of coast it through into that new area, but It seems that it just was not a success. It's really unfortunate for myself because I wanted to try this one. I wanted to get in. I think at the time when it released, my phone wasn't covered, didn't work, so I was unable to get in. But now I never will. I was hoping it would play out like Naraka Blade Point. Sure. I don't think that's quite the case.
I wonder how that game's doing.
That's what I was thinking too. I wonder. I wish I could see the numbers on that.
Yeah, me too. We did play that. We had a good time playing that one, but we haven't been back in. We went actually right back to PUBG, which is ironic.
Oh, but I'm back on Fortnite now.
That's which I never saw coming. But dude, Final Fantasy Battle Royale, they announced this. I was like, oh, this is cool. I'm gonna jump in. I got to jump in. I was in there real quick. I did the tutorial, and I'm like, man, there's a lot going on here. Like, there's a ton. And I'm like, man, is this too much? And I wonder if that was too much, or was it just too late for Final Fantasy and the development team to be able to, hone in on the game service side of things and keep all the content going. I know they are hosting tournaments and things like that. So I'm a little shocked, Scott, that this didn't really take off the way I expected it to, being how big Final Fantasy truly is.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I'm surprised. And it's, again, another giant company and doesn't always stick the landing.
No. Do you think what it is, though, is that Final Fantasy fans just want a Final Fantasy game and not a battle royale? Like, they definitely went outside of the wheelhouse of what they specialize in. So to try and I get you want to branch out, but was the battle royale genre just a little too far?
Yeah, it seems like it just didn't quite fit the material.
Yeah. What also doesn't fit is Activision Blizzard facing another sexual harassment suit. Dude, it just keeps coming.
Unfortunately, that seems to fit. It happens so often.
Yeah, it's just I wish they'd just figure this out. Brendan Sinclair over GamesIndustry.biz covered this one. Activision Blizzard is being sued by another former employee, allegedly sexual harassment, according to the Daily Mail. The suit was filed in Los Angeles Superior Court by a woman identified as Jane Doe, who claims product manager Miguel Vega groped her, belittled her, and made frequent unwanted sexual advancements towards her.
I don't think that has ever flown in any workplace ever.
No, man. Like I don't get how we keep coming back to this, especially like at all. It's unfortunate, man. Hopefully things get sorted out, Scott. But the biggest thing here is that she's suing for damages as well as calling for Activision Blizzard CEO Bobby Kotick's removal. That's an interesting twist.
At this point, I think that's almost the last step to take at this point.
Well, if you're so right now, because the deal going on with Microsoft and Activision Blizzard being purchased by Microsoft for $68 billion, having Bobby on the team, is that like a red flag for anybody right now, Microsoft, or is it, oh, we'll just buy the company and then get rid of him? Like, apparently he's not going anywhere according to rumors and documents that have been kind of out there. So
may have been sticking in some sort of a role after the transaction is complete.
Yeah.
But I'm not certain that he's necessary.
I don't know if he's necessary or even wanted.
Yeah, like I'm not sure it's worth the trouble at this point, just because of the sheer volume of allegations, specifically naming Bobby Kotick even.
Well, that just like she completely called him right out. Like, no, I want him gone too. I was like, I get it. Like from what I hear, he's not a very cool guy at all. So, but man, there's a lot of information on the inside, Scott, that a lot of us don't know. But what we have heard isn't good over there at Activision Blizzard. But we're continuing on with another Activision Blizzard game. It's one of the biggest. It's Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 to get campaign DLC in 2023. Dude, that's cool.
I'm actually a big fan of campaign expansions.
Absolutely. Me too. Last I heard, Horizon Forbidden West is getting DLC. Let's go. This is Michael Hardens.
The amount that's sold, I would not be surprised.
Yeah, this is Michael over PSU. Bloomberg's Jason Schreier has revealed that Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 will receive campaign DLC in 2023, as well as a Greatest Hits multiplayer map pack, presumably to plug the gap next year when there is not expected a Call of Duty game at all after Scott. They're going to take a year off next year. We will see if that actually happens, but they'll keep it alive in other means. Next year, they'll be selling new stuff for Modern Warfare 2, an expansion or something like that. Not sure exactly what it'll look like, but it'll have campaign stuff too. No actual new Call of Duty until 2024, as reported earlier this year. This backs up previous reports from leaker The Ghost of Hope, who also claimed that a Greatest Hits pack or map pack will be released, which is set to feature nearly all the maps of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 from 2009, Scott.
Oh, that's the part that I'm really excited about. I want to load up into those old maps again with my old friends again.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I have to get together a big LAN party because that's how we used to do it.
Dude, you know Corey and Adam will be all over that. They'll be jumping in for sure. They will be there. But it's
Oh, way back
DLC.
in the day, there was one other kid in high school that had a bigger gamer score than me.
Really?
As Robert Miele, and we showed up to his house all the time to play this game. We ended up being the best friends.
Nice.
So I'm hoping this can rekindle that, Robert. I'll play you 1v1 me any map.
There you go, dude. I'm excited for DLC because I'm not the biggest multiplayer guy when it comes to Call of Duty, but I do love their campaigns, so I'll be jumping into the campaign hopefully very soon, as we'll be looking to review that one for the show.
It could be in the form of Spec Ops, which is what I'm thinking, and aside from the campaign, but just a different kind of mode.
That'd be cool. Dude, I want to get to one more here real quick because this one I think is right up your alley. The new shooter from makers of Bulletstorm is delayed to 2023, unfortunately. Andy Chalk over at PC Gamer. It's been 5 years since Polish studio The Astronauts announced Witchfire, a dark fantasy shooter about witches and worse. It's an alt history medieval world, and it'll be a while yet before the game sees the light of day, as the studio announced yesterday that the release plan for the end of the year has been delayed into early 2023. It's got no actual date as to when, just know that we'll be getting something. There'll be new features added, already implemented. We're 95% implemented, says the creative director, Adrian. It makes the game better. It is kind of hard for me to imagine the player did not have that freedom before. Sure, you can still be trapped in in by the witch in this or that spot, and some doors will be closed until you find a key, and it might be too dangerous to enter areas closer to the boss before you are ready. But the world is wide open for you to explore in almost any order, and you can both push forward and retreat as you please. Scott, I think this is something that is going to be right up your alley, dude, in next year.
Oh, definitely. From what I've seen about it, this is definitely a game that I'm going to enjoy. I hope.
Yeah, it's going to be cool.
Delay makes sense every time this comes up. If they want to delay, that's fine by me, because this is exactly the kind of game that I'm going to pick apart.
No, for sure. Scott, we do have a couple releases today, buddy. What do we have?
We have Fueled Up on PlayStation 4, 5, Xbox One, XS, and PC. The Eternal Cylinder on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series consoles. The Last Aura Crew, that is on new consoles as well as PC. And Triangle Strategy makes its way to PC today.
Nice. And that'll wrap up today's show, everybody. Thank you for hanging out with us. This has been ITG Daily, the show that brings you the hottest in gaming news. You can always join us live on Twitch and YouTube, but if you can't join us live, hit us up later inside thegame.ca, podcast services, and TV streaming networks around the globe. Until tomorrow, everybody, I'm Drew, that's Scott. We'll see you inside the game.